Okay, hello everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever, like wherever you are joining. So today's agenda is going to be on performance tuning. This is our webinar 6, and if you see this agenda, we'll start with how to identify the queries and which are queries running, how to fetch whether query is progressing or not, and then how to get the hash value of the query, and then how to get what is the text, what is the SQL text it is running, and then how to get the explain plan of that query, and then how to run AWR report, and then how to review that. And then after doing all this, what are the remedies, what are the solutions for those SQL queries which are running long. And then some of them are gather stats and some of them are profiling, and then at the end we'll go with some of the common issues after your post DB upgrades, right? So one of the common question is, when it comes to the performance tuning, how to start, where to start, what to look, right? So without knowing these 3 points, you cannot you may go in a wrong direction, right? So I unfortunately I have not prepared any of these slides, but I do have one of my document which I always used to prefer, so I'll just go through that. Right, so let's start with query. uh, Somebody from the application team, they comes and they'll tell one of my queries, I'm not able to hear your voice. So, location, just disconnect and try connecting back, because everyone are able to hear my voice. It might be some issue with your mic or earphone, right? So application team will come back to you and they will say that my query is running very long. It's some kind of abnormalities I'm seeing it today. So can you look into it? So that's a common question. Any DB, any application guy, I will come and will complain about that, right? So I hope my voice is audible to everyone. So if yes, just say comment here, right? Okay. Okay, good. Okay, the moment application team or whatever the end user comes and complain you, my query is running, very weird, and it's supposed to run by 15 minutes, and now it's running from almost 30 minutes, and almost it's running from last 1 hour, whatever query it is. The moment they come and complain, uh, first thing you need to check it out at your database, what all queries are running right moment, right at that time, right? So this particular SQL, you can fetch it out again. This is the, if you are familiar with the command prompt, you can use it, or else if you are using SQL developer or Toad, those are like much more advanced features and user friendly. You can use those SQL developer or Toad, and fetch it out. This is a simple output, sample output I gave here. The run it, and then it list out what all the sessions are running, and then based upon that you can decide which particular session they are complaining about, and what is that query is about, whether it's a select or whether it's update or whether it is a truncate, what kind of query it is. You just try to analyze that query, and then once you get that particular SID, and then the more information, hash value and SQL ID, and much more information about the long running jobs, you can see from how much time it is running, and everything will get it with this particular SQL. That is from these two are the views, $$ session and session, and then $$ SQL area. These are the two, with the help of combining those two, you can get particular syntax, what it is doing, and from how much time it is running, and what is the hash value, what is the SQL ID, and what is the SID. Everything will get it. So note it down. Once you note it down, and then run this particular view, that is session stats and stat name. So using these two $$ dynamic views, you can get whether the query is progressing or not. By running, you can check the percentage row. That value will give you whether it's progressing or not. Get the row fetched, how much row it is fetching for every minute or every 2 minutes. So that indicates whether the query is progressing or the query is stuck, or it is waiting for some resource, or like you will get it. So as long as this is progressing, and you are good, like query is progressing as usual, right? So that's the other thing you have to verify. The moment you run it, it will ask you for the SID. That SID, you have got it from the first step, right? So you just pass that particular SID, and then you can monitor this how much the rows it is fetching. So as long as it is increasing, and then fine, your query is running fine. So once you identify that, and then get the SQL hash value. So you can get the SQL hash value using a VDLR session, and you can pass that particular SID. Again, you got that SID from the step number one, and then you'll get the hash value. The moment you get the hash value, and then you can get the SQL text. Again, it will give you detailed output of that SQL text. And then once you get this hash value, and once you get this SQL text, and then you can fetch the execution plan, explain plan for that, using this SQL plan. And then you can pass that hash value, and then you can pass that particular SID. So it will give you that execution plan, right? So once you get your execution plan, and then start analyzing the execution plan. So I'll explain you how to read the execution plan in a minute. And then check it out, what is your cost, whether cost is more or cost is less. You can compare it to your previous history, and then you can say whether the query is really doing good, or whether the query is doing bad. Because sometimes what happens, yesterday the query ran for suppose 10 minutes, today query is running for almost 20 minutes. There might be huge data on the table level, that application team has to confirm, or there might be change in the data at the table level, that application team has to confirm on that, right? So our job is to check for the cost, how much cost it is utilizing, and then analyze the your execution plan. What are the index it has used, and whether it's going for a full table scan, or whether it is going for an index scan. And then based upon past history, you can analyze it, and then you can conclude whether query is really doing good, or whether its query is really doing bad, so by reading this execution plan. So once you decide, once you read your execution plan, and then you can generate your AWR report. Why you want to generate AWR report? Because by looking at your execution plan, you cannot conclude whether your query is really doing good or bad. Because at the same time, there might be other session or other top SQLs, right? The moment you run AWR report, you will get to know how is the load on your database, how is the load on your server, right? So run AWR report, and read that AWR report for top 8 event, and top SQLs, and top IOs, and then how much gets, how much reads, and how much execution iteration is going on. Everything you can read it from the AWR report. I already covered one detailed session on AWR report in my YouTube channel. If somebody missed it, so it's good to go over that video, because I covered most of the things on that. So definitely I will take one more session on AWR report in upcoming days. So you can review your AWR report and compare with your execution plan. So then by doing those two, you can decide whether what are the best solution to fix that particular, the after reading your execution plan, you decided, oh, the query is not really doing good. My cost is very much too much, and it is not using my index, it is not going for a full table scan. You decide it after reading all those, and after reading your AWR report. You can take appropriate solution. There are many solution you can think of by doing AWR report, and by the just at looking at your execution plan. So I'll explain you how to read this particular explain plan, and then AWR report, because I have so much content here. I'll just brief first at this iteration, and then we'll go in detail. Like solutions comes, you can sometimes you may need to gather stats, and sometimes you may need to gather dictionary stats, and sometimes you may need to do a table move or table string, and sometimes you may need to rebuild index, and then finally go for the profiling. These are like ultimate five solutions. You can whichever best fits for your current scenario, you can choose it appropriately, and directly don't jump into the profiling, because profiling is not recommended by Oracle. If you tag any particular execution plan by using profiling, then in future, if there is a good execution plan also, it will not be used. Whatever the tag, that will be used. So we'll go each one of them in detail. So any doubts here? Sagar is asking one question here. Plan hash value and SQL plan hash value are two different things. Plan hash value and SQL plan hash value. Oh, what is SQL plan hash value? Plan hash value. So I did not get that. There's no two things, as far as I know. Only plan hash value. SQL plan hash means what? Like we know SQL ID. SQL plan hash means I never come across. Sorry, I might have missed. I might have not known to that. As far as I know, SQL SQL ID and then the plan hash value. Right. So okay. Now, question comes here: how to read this particular execution plan? So that I will directly go into this particular, execution plan. This is one of the execution plan for one of the customers. So how to read this particular execution plan? You have to first go to the innermost loop. So it will start with the outermost loop here, and you have to go all the way down. You have to start with the innermost loop. That is, innermost loop is this one. This one you can see here, right? Index range scan. So it is going with the index range scan here, and then you can go one step above, and then it's going for table access by index row ID, and then you can go one step above, table access by storage full, and it will go for nested loops, and then it will use the hash join, and then hash group by, and then you have to start reading your table from the innermost. So if you see here, it is start with the index range scan here. So this is my index, and it is making use of index, and then it is going all the way top, and then it's doing the insert statement. So, and then you have to look at your cost. What is the cost? Now, if you see here, right, this 77,297. This is cost is going to be huge, like 100% CPU. So there's something wrong with this particular execution plan here. Okay, if I show one more, if you observe here, right, plan hash value, this is ending with 254, and then if I come back here, the plan hash value ending with 141, and it is also doing the same thing, insert statement, and for the same table. And if you see here, this particular, right, this particular uh, index range scan, that is using U1. This particular index, it's using U1, and if I go back here, this particular innermost, it is using the N1, this GL code combination N1, and here you can see GL code combination U1. This is a unique index here, and this is that the name, you don't worry about the naming convention. So it is based upon the name what you've given, right? So if you observe here, it is using N1 here, and it is using U1 here. And if you see cost value here, it is 215K. And if I go back here, the cost value here is, if I convert into K, it is 77K. And then uh, again, like I'll explain you, by looking at cost value, again, you cannot decide whether it is doing good or not. So we'll go in detail. That's what I wanted to give you a brief introduction here. How you can read. You have to start with the innermost, and you can see it is using index scan here, and this is the index it is using. And then it will go one step above, and then this particular table, it is using again one more, this on this GL code combination table, and on this table it is using this N1 index, and then GL reval, it is using this particular uh, table with the table access storage full, and then GL reval currencies, it is using table access full. And then if I go here, if it is using here innermost, it is using index range scan, and then that index is GL line U1. And here there's no, if you see here, it is index range scan, it is using after the this GL code combination, the same table and same insert table, and it is taking a two plan hash value, and it is using a two different indexes, because this particular table has a two indexes, and U1 and N1, based upon the business it is decided. But whatever insert you are doing, it is using a two particular hash value. So how, the question comes here, how I got these two different hash value and these two different execution plan, right? So that will come into, we'll discuss it now. So any questions so far? So whatever I covered, This is the basic you have to start with whenever you whenever any concerns, you start fetching what are I'll repeat once again. You run this particular query and check what all running on your particular database, what all running on your database at that moment by running this particular query. The moment you find out which particular SQL is running long, and in which particular SQL the business team or application team they are pointing out, you can take that particular SID, and then based upon that SID you can observe whether it is a progressing or whether it is a struck or whether it is slow progressing, right? By looking at this number of rows, how many number of rows it is fetching. By reading that, you can see whether the query is doing good or not. And then with that particular SID, you can get the plan SQL hash value. And then the moment you get the SQL hash value, using that you can get the SQL text. Once you get the SQL text, and then you can get the explain plan for that particular run. And then by reading your execution plan, that is a cost, one is the cost, and one is what table it is, what index it is using, whether it's going for a index scan or full table scan, what kind of scan it is going. You just review those two, and then once review those two, once you make it note of that, and then run the AWR report, and then make it out what all running on your database, whether that query, that whatever the SQL hash value or the whatever the SQL plan, whatever running, whether that is coming under top five weight events, or top five SQL IDs, or top IO event, right? If any of those top five event, if this particular SQL, whatever business team is complaining, if that is coming under top five, then you have to look into tuning that particular query, or you have to start taking the appropriate action. Suppose if that is not coming under top five, well, top five SQL or top five weight events, so then that query is not bad at all. There might be some other top SQLs, what are like top 10 SQLs you are seeing in AWS report. Those are consuming more resource on your database. So that is the reason your this particular SQL is running very slow. You have to ask the business team what are these top SQLs and why these are running, and why they are running for a longer time. And then you have to ask them to look into those, and then this particular SQL is running fine, because you are seeing that number of rows are fetching and number of rows are increasing. So then if you are seeing this particular SQL coming under top 5 SQLs, then you have to start looking into tuning that. So what are the solution remedies you are seeing? Like gather stats on the tables, whatever the tables are involved on those, start gathering the stats and start rebuilding the index, and start do the maintenance, like table move or table shrink. And then other option, like this is particularly comes automatically Oracle has to do it, but sometimes I seen it gathering the dictionary stats and gathering the fixed object stats may fix these kind of issues. So on every weekend, or monthly, you have to do the gather dictionary stats and the gather fixed object stats. So that will improve your performance of any queries, not particularly this one. This will improve the performance of your database. So these are a few recommendation I used to follow. So that's about it. And then I'll now come to the SQL profiling. So you have done SQL rebuilding index and table move also you are doing, and gather dictionary stats, and stats on the table. Everything is perfectly fine and everything is working fine. And then still you are seeing that performance issue. Then the ultimate, like, final option is to go for profiling. So how the profiling works, right? So before I go into profiling, so I'll take up some questions here. In explain plan, how to know the innermost first one to check. Innermost first one to check means, as I said, right, the moment you, okay, I'll show you that. Always the execution plan, the how you can read, you have to start from the innermost, because that is the inner, what I can say, the subquery will run first, and you have to start with the innermost reading this one. By looking at this one, it is a table access, and that table access, it is going with the index range scan. And then by looking at the index range scan, we can check it out whether this particular index is uh, valid, or because in the on that table you might be having many indexes. For example, there's a logic behind creating index, right? This n1, and you can see this is a u1. So there are two index built on this particular table, but the logic behind that index is different. So you have to think, you have to start from here, and you have to, by directly looking at this execution plan, and if you see here, okay, it is looking okay, it is, if you start it from here, you can see, right, okay, it's a GL reval currencies. And then if you start looking into this particular table, you will, it will going to mislead you, right? So you have to always start with the innermost. That is how you need to read your execution plan. And then just compare with the previous execution plan, whether the innermost it is using index range scan, and that's the index here. And here index range scan, it is using U1. So, and then you can, that is a starting point. You have to look, okay, why it is a change here, and then you can fix that and then proceed further. And then one more query here: can some SQL text having the different SQL ID? No, actually SQL text, SQL ID is going to be common, whether you can select star from emp and select star from emp with a capital or with a lower letter, or you can make it E smaller and emp, MP and larger. Whatever combination of SQL you write it, the SQL ID is going to be same, but this particular plan hash value is going to change. For example, if you write a select star from employee with a lowercase, your plan hash value will get changed, but execution plan, sorry, the SQL IDs remain same. And the same query, if you write it in capital letter, select star from emp or select star for employee with the capital letter, and again hash value will get changed, but SQL IDs remain same. So I'll explain it in a few minutes. Will the SQL ID change when internal or bind variables are changed? Yes, again, as I said, right, one of the main concern, like it is especially for the developers who are writing the query, uh, it's always recommended to use the blind value, right? So because when you write a query with which helps, or using the blind variables, so what happens, the SQL ID is going to remain same. It is not going to change it, because you are giving the example like select star for employee, where employee ID, and then you can use some blind variable there. And then the SQL ID is going to same for that, because you're just giving it a variable. All the employee IDs, you are giving it as a variable. How many times it runs, it uses the same SQL ID, right? So, okay, having said that, we'll start into the profiling, because that is a very much interesting for everyone. Okay, one more query is how to generate explain plan for previous query. Okay, so I'm coming to that. I'm going to answer for that one. So the SQL profiling, two more most important SQLs, given by Oracle. I'll give you this particular MOS document. This is AWR SQL history. This is a particular SQL. This is again provided by Oracle. I'll give you a MOS ID for this particular SQL. And then was the one more, I think I noted down here. Okay, this one, COE XFR underscore SQL profile data SQL. These are the two SQLs given by Oracle. I'll after this session, I'm going to share these two SQLs and MOS notes. What happens, you have to run this particular SQL given by Oracle. The moment you run this one, it will ask for the SQL ID. You have already noted down your SQL ID from the previous this one, right? SQL test, SQL hash value, and then by doing all this, you already got your SID, you already got your SQL IDs, all you have already handy. You have to run this particular SQL ID, and then it'll ask you to pass that SQL ID. I'll show you that AWR SQL history, and then the moment you run it, it'll ask you to enter the SQL ID. The moment you give the SQL ID, it will give you all the past execution plans. See, for example, this is my the old execution plan. This is one execution plan it listed here, and it is using N1. And at the down again, it listed this one more execution plan. You can see it is using U1, and this is the plan hash value. And you can see this is a plan hash. There's a difference in the plan hash value, and there's a cost also. You can see it's a 215K, and this cost is 77K. There's a huge difference here with these two execution plan. So then you decided which one is best for you. And then again, you can see here execution, it went for 53 iteration, and this one it went for 14 iteration. And then you can read this one, right? ILO, PIO, and CPU. You can see CPU 6775, and you can see CPU is 1.8, because it's a 14 time execution, and then this is a 53 time execution, and this is the elapsed time 15 in terms of minutes, 15,584. And you can see it's a 2.32. It again depends how much data you're fetching and all. So again, one of the most interesting thing is execution, how much time it is going to execute. If it is a multiple time it is executing, you have to check with the application team why you are using, like what is the logic behind that, why these many times, these many iteration it is going to execute, right? So these are questions you have to ask. By looking at this, then you will decide, okay, this particular one for one is looking good for me, and then I want to peg that one. So for that, you can see, right, this is the one more SQL given by Oracle again. So you had to run this particular SQL. I will again, as I said, I will share these two SQLs, and there's a particular mass document for this whatever process I'm explaining. You have to run it. The moment you run it, it will ask for the SQL ID. You can see SQL ID is same. Whatever I'm showing it here, SQL ID is remains same. Only the plan hash value is getting changed. So I'm giving the same SQL ID here. The moment I give the SQL ID, it will ask for the what is the hash value, plan hash value. So you decided the plan hash value ending with this 141, and cost is 215K, and then this is good for me, and because this is using U1, and this is using like 14 time of execution, whereas compared with this one, it is 53 time execution. So that is the bad, and it is consuming more CPU and more elapsed time, and it's a bad at all. And then I want to peg this particular SQL. So you have to give that particular hash value. You can see the ending with 141, and then moment you give this particular hash value, and it will generate the profile by its own, by name, everything it will give by its own. You can see all this, it is doing all this, and finally it will give you this particular output message: execute COE XFR SQL profile, and then this is the profile name it will give. This is a SQL ID underscore, this is a hash value, that SQL. The moment it will give you this particular profile, you just run that particular SQL in your SQL session. You just run it, and then it'll uh, it will give this particular output message: the PLSQL procedure completed successfully, and then this is output, it's completed. And then if you go back to your DB, your SQL profiles, and then verify that particular profile is pegged. And then at any cost, if this particular insert statement runs again, it is going to fetch this particular execution plan, because you have pegged this particular execution plan to the any upcoming query with the same insert statement on these particular tables. It will go and it will fetch this particular execution plan, and it will use it, whatever, irrespective of whatever data, whatever change in data, whatever happens, it will use only this particular execution plan. It will never change. But one of the Oracle recommendation is always never ever use this particular SQL profiling, because what happens, like now you are in 12c, like for example 12.1, and then you did some patching and you did some upgradation and all, still it will be using same execution plan. But when you do the patching and when you do the bug fixes, there might be good execution plan might have created, and that will run much lesser time what this SQL is using, right? So that is the reason Oracle will not recommend to use this particular profiling. But as long as if you raise a SR and then decided to go with SQL profiling as a time being temporary solution, you can go it. So I have seen it, I have used it for many customers. So this is a temporary as a workaround, you can use it always. So that is for the profiling. Any questions so far? So, and then I will have some more topics here. Okay, is the same what you do DBMS SQL tune except plan profile? Yes. So if you use the DBMS SQL tune, that's the same thing. Whatever Sagar, Saurabh, you are telling, that's the same thing. Whatever this particular SQL, that's again, these are given by Oracle. There's a particular MOS document how to use. If you are familiar with DBMS SQL tune, you can go for that. And if you are not familiar of the DBMS queries, you can always use these two SQLs. These are the simple two SQLs. You just need to run it. And one of the thing is this AWR SQL history is very, very important. The moment you run it, whatever the old execution plan, it will list out. And then you can just compare it. What is the current execution plan and what is the old execution plan? What is the different? and then just make a comparison out of that, and then take whichever you feel it's a good execution plan, and create a profile and then peg it. So that's it about this profiling. Okay, one more question. Where that two SQL scripts are available? No, it will not comes with your Oracle binaries. You have to download it from the Oracle Moss node. I'll give that particular Moss node, and also I'll give those two SQLs. Okay, so I'll quickly cover one more topic uh, okay, if you don't know, this is my blogspot, Malik034 blogspot.com. A lot of topics I uploaded there, you can go through that. So this is it's a year back, I believe it is in February, approximately end of Jan, for one of the customer. When I did a upgradation from when they did upgradation from 11.204 to 12.2, they had some performance issues, and none of the queries are running fine. So then I just went into the analyzing how they did the upgradation, and then one few of the recommend how I approached for that particular issue. I given a detailed step there. What I did, they did the upgradation. What they did, they just downloaded the 12.2 binaries, and they directly upgraded the database 11.204 to 12c. uh, they are not they are not uploaded any of the patch on this Oracle binaries. So remember, when you install your any of the new Oracle home, either 11g or 12c or 19c, it will be always in a base version. So base versions will be having a lot of bugs. So the moment you the moment you install any Oracle home, the best recommendation is to apply whatever the latest the PSU or the CPU patch available. So I just verified there were no patch applied on that particular 12c home. So I went ahead and then applied the latest patch available for that particular Oracle home. That's the one thing. And then second thing, what I observed after the database upgrade, they have not done the dictionary stats or the fixed object stat. As I said, this is one of the best recommendations. So so many customers, when I do this dictionary stats and gather fixed object stat, the moment I do these two, most of the issues are getting fixed. That is what I observed so far. So this is one of the best recommendation I'll recommend for anybody. Frequently or weekly or monthly, better to do this fixed object stat and the dictionary stats. So I have seen some of the Arman queries also getting hanged, taking a lot of times when you are running like Arman backup and recoveries, and if you want to track how much Arman backup and recoveries are processed, so those queries are getting hanged. So to fix for that, you have to do this gather stats and fix object stat. The moment you do it, all the Arman queries and all will go, and it will fetch data very fast. This is the second fix I did it for that customer. And then third thing what I did, the third section 3, you can see, right, table move. So there are like around 15 to 20 the major table, which are like having data in terms of I can say terabyte, like 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte of tables. That's a data warehouse database, and it is having around 2 terabyte. Each table will be of like around 800 GB, and like 800 GB or 1 terabyte size of tables. And what I did, like I did a table move over a weekend, table move and table string on those major table, around 20 table whatever they given. So I did like these are like tables, you can see, like move parallel no logging, and alter table, and no parallel logging. I did a move parallel logging and no parallel logging. And then I did it for all the tables, whatever, like around 20 tables. And then after that, what I did, like fourth action item, I did a rebuild index on those particular tables. This is the syntax. You can use alter index name, uh, coalesce, and alter index name, and rebuild parallel no logging, and then alter index name, no parallel logging. So this is a syntax, you can use it. And after I rebuild index on that, finally what I did, the stats, right, collect stats with 100%. I did a collect stat with 100% on those measure tables. After doing all this, all of a sudden, like whatever the queries they are facing, around 8 to 9 queries, all the reporting queries were like having a very bad impact. Then the moment I did this one, ultimately, like all the queries are started fetching data very fast, and it was a huge improvement in the performance. So this is basic recommendations. Like there are so many apart from that, there are so many tuning advisor and all available, but these are the basic ground like homework you have to do it before you are touching into any performance, the tuning SQL advisor and all. Before going to that, this is the basic groundwork anyone has to do it when they do the database upgrade or whatever kind of migrations or the patchings. So that this is for one of the customer I did it. So that is for the today's topic, whatever I wanted to cover. So any questions so far? I can see a few of them. To the same TBS. TBS, you mean tape backup? Okay, what is this? One more question. What is okay? Where I missed so many questions here. Let's see. I will come from the top. How to resolve high CPU memory utilization? Okay, yeah. Again, Pawan, like performance tuning, there are so many areas. You can tune at your database side, CPU, memory, so many things. But for the today's topic, what I wanted to cover, how you can profile your SQLs and what are your how you can monitor your current running and how to get this. This is a basic agenda I wanted to take it today. Definitely, I will come up with few more topics on the on this tuning this OS parameter like memory and IO stats, VM stats and net stat. There are so many parameters you have to tune at database server side also. So definitely I'll take one more session, but I already covered one session on the database performance tuning where I explained about how you can read your all this memory parameter, IO parameter, net stat, VM stat, SAR report. In my YouTube channel, I already covered detailed explanation on that. You just go through that. It explain how to read it, how to read all these parameters, but how to tune. Definitely, I will come up with one more session. Definitely, in next coming webinar, we'll take this one. How to tune these database parameters like memory, IO, network parameter. Like network parameter when it comes to the rack, the tuning interconnects, right? The communication between the rack interconnects, that is GES and GCS. So tuning will comes into picture when it comes to that network part in the rack. So definitely I will take a one more session, probably next coming webinar or next webinar we'll take on that. What is the reason for what? Okay, Vasu is asking, where are those two skipped? Okay, that I already answered. Sometimes I'm not able to see SQL ID at the database level. SQL ID you are not able to see at database. No query will run without SQL ID. Whatever query you run it, definitely there should be SQL ID. So you have to check what SQL you are running, or you can ping me what SQL you are running to check the SQL ID. I'll check it out. How to decide index scan is better than the full table scan? Okay, very interesting question, Swati. See, when you are okay, when you are fetching the data, like select star from employee where employee ID, select star from department where department ID, whatever you are running, whatever query you are running, and if your query is returning 5% of the data of your entire table or 5% of the records of entire table, better to go with the index scan, right? So if you are getting the 5% of your output data of your entire table, and if you are getting the 20 more than 25% of your entire table, better to go with a full table scan. For example, I have 100 records, 100 records of table where I want to do like select star from employee where employee ID equal to 1. It is returning only one record. In that case, I have to go with the index range scan. And if I go with the full table scan, there is no point in that, right? So the suppose I will explain one more query. Select star from employee where employee ID is greater than 20. Greater than 20 means I will get 21 to 100. I am getting 80 records, so that time better to go with a full table scan. So that is again that decided by the optimizer whether to go to index scan or the full table scan based upon the how much data it is returning out of that SQL. Okay, so how to the same TBS where it will move? Same TBS. What is the TBS? I did not get that. The question is I'm not able to understand. It is you can rephrase it again. Sagar, can Oracle plan base is better than profiling? Plan base. You plan base means you are talking about the baseline. Baseline, okay. The baseline is a one more interesting topic. So baseline is also, I'll cover one more topic on the baseline. So again, I said right, like profiling never ever suggest. I'll never ever suggest profiling for any of the customer until and unless I will run out of all the ideas. So profiling always I'll keep it as a last option. So I will go with all these alternative option based either baseline or stats or index, or I'll try it out all the options. If nothing is worked out, I'll go with the profiling. So the performance issue fixed when you did all the steps. Yeah, definitely what I said, like in the moment I did those are the groundwork. The moment you do any patching or any migration or upgradation or whatever you do, the patching and table move, table shrink and index and gather stats, gather dictionary stats and gather fixed object stats. These are like ground rule. You have to do it. The moment you do it, after the doing only you have to release your database for the production use or the application use. Without doing that, if you release your database, that is no use at all, as if you are not done anything. Because after you do the migration or upgradations, or these are like ground homework, you have to do it. So those will fix a lot of issues. And then after that also, if they're coming back with some of the performance issues, then you dig into tuning all these advisor, like using SQL plans and what it is using, what earlier it was using. And then there's a so many tools like relay and capture and relay, so many options you can use it. But you have to do this ground homework first before getting into that performance tuning. Okay, table space. No, yeah, table move in the sense I'm not moving my table to different table space. Table move in the sense what happens if you have a data inside your table space, you have done a lot of insert, update, delete, right? Your data will be scattered across entire your table space. It is not uniformly arranged in your your blocks. It is not uniformly arranged on your data blocks. It's not uniformly arranged on your segments or extents. When you do the table move, all your blocks, data blocks will be arranged sequentially and uniformly, and then it will reduce the space, unnecessary space, which are like, for example, if I have like data block 1 is used, data block 2 is empty, and data block 3 is used, so unnecessarily there is a one data block in between data block 1 and 2. When you do the table move, that unnecessary used block will be removed, and data block 2 will be kept next to that data block 1. That is arranging your blocks uniformly, so that when you do the select or insert update, the query will be much faster. That is the reason we have to do the regular table move activity. So I recommend to do table move activity, table shrink, and index this scan and all on every weekend as a weekend activity. As a weekend maintenance activity, better to do this table move activity. When you're doing a lot of insert, update, delete on the table, it's always recommended to do the table move activity on weekly basis as a maintenance activity. Okay, Johnny is asking one more question. In rack scenario, how the fixed and dictionary stats? It's the same, whatever it is, whether it's a standalone or the rack, it is applicable. So you have to run that fixed object stats and dictionary object stats on at least on monthly basis. That will solve your questions, solve your lot of issues. Okay, so one more question. Parallel logging and no logging. Can you please explain? Okay, so when you do the table move activity and all, right, there are a lot of logs will be generated. When you do this no logging, it will not generate any log. If you see here, right, what I'm doing, table move parallel with no logging, it will not generate any logs. So unnecessarily, why you want to generate the logs which are not at all used? Like I'm talking about this archeologs and all, right? So unnecessarily, I don't want to generate the logs when I'm doing the table move. If it's a terabyte of table, when you do the with logging, it will generate a lot of Farca logs, right? So when you do this no logging, it will do the table move without generating any logs, and then after that you can enable the logging, no parallel logging, right? So that's the point here. And why does optimizer changes the plan? Okay, yeah, good question. Why does optimizer changes the plan? So again, very interesting question. You brought it here, Anand. uh, See, I'll tell you with respect to this only. So what I told here, like this is one particular execution plan, and this is one more particular execution plan which is got changed. Why it got changed? uh, there might be new data in the table. For example, this particular table is about EBS table, And in the EBS, you might be aware that there's a journal table. This is GL stands for journal tables, and there's a code combination because they will take a code from different sources. Because EBS is a kind of unique source. It will be attached to any of your many of the application, right? Like either PeopleSoft or any many functional areas, right? EBS is the ultimately it will hold the all the journal entry journal data. The source data will be coming from the different sources. The data will be coming from the different sources. When this particular execution plan has ran, so data came from the PeopleSoft. So PeopleSoft data will be different, and then my ABS table will be having that data belongs to PeopleSoft. And that time, this is the execution plan. And then next week, when in the same GL table, and data came from the you can assume that some other application. I can say finance application or some third party application. Again, that data also comes into GL table. That's the general ledger, right? So that is a different source. So there's a change in the data incoming data, right? So there's a change in the codes and those things. And then obviously your optimizer will change its behavior, and then it will generate the new execution plan thinking this might be the best. But ultimately that may be wrong, so it will go for a toss. Then you will see that performance impact. Again, other scenario is the index, whatever index you are using, that index might be invisible, or that index might be something wrong with the index, or some table, there are a lot of DML happened at the table, like some lot of truncation, lot of load happened on the table, lot of data change on the table, so there might be a change in the plan. So there are many scenarios you may see that change in the plan, right? So that's about the change in plan. And then there's a huge question here: what is the performance issue fixed when you did all this listed? A few out of them already answered. Okay. Why the plan hash value changes? Plan hash value, yeah, again I said na. So plan hash value, it left to it is an internal mechanism. With the moment you run, like as I already explained, right? Select star from employee. If you do the lower case, Oracle internally generate a unique value for that, considering that particular sequence, and then that is a that hash value is tagged to that particular the whatever syntax we have used. And then I can use select star from employee with the capital letter, and then with particular to that syntax and that way of execution, again the hash value will be get generated for that. That is the internal mechanism. Even I'm not sure why it changed internally, but let me I'll do some research and I'll get back to you. Again, but the point here is your SQL ID will never change. Only the plan hash value will get changed. But plan hash value is get changed means internally your execution plan is going to get changed. uh okay, so how SQL IDs are same for the queries with the different customers? Different customers, how SQL? No, it is not going to same for any customer, right? It is same across your database. If you go to the other database with the same SQLs, your SQL ID will never be same. Select star from employee, if you run it here, your SQL ID is different. Same select star from employee, you run it on the other database, your SQL ID will be different. Okay, so how to decide we need to rebuild index in a database? Index in a database. Now again, I said, right, like if you are fetching only 5% of the data, and if it is still using index, the valid index, but you are still it is taking a lot of time. So and then that's the point you have to thinking of your rebuilding index, and you have to check whether index is first thing is whether the index is visible or not. Sometimes index will be invisible, and sometimes index will be okay. What I can say, I'm not getting that particular word. Invalid. So if it's index is invalid, you have to rebuild your index. So that's about the other point. Could you please put some light on high watermark and low watermark? Okay, again, this is the internal concept, Anand. Like, uh, sorry, Anda. I'm not able to pronounce Andan. Anand or Andan. Okay, fine. So this one, right? High watermark and low watermark. Again, like one of the reason doing the table move to bring down like high watermark and low watermark. Again, that is a different concept. Again, I will cover it in next topic. Again, just to give some idea on that. For example, you have a block A, like you have one block, and then if you have inserted one record inside that block, and then that block is suppose it is filled 80%, and then 80% is your you can decide high watermark and low watermark, how much data I can grow. For example, if it's a 100% block, and then you can decide 90% is a high watermark, and then I cannot grow more than that. And then you inserted a record and it will go up to 90% of that inside that block. And then later some point, if you delete some of the data inside that particular row, and then it will come down to 50%. And then your high watermark will not come down until unless if you don't do the table move activities and all those. That's why you have to do the table move activity. So definitely I will take one more session on this high watermark and low watermark. So that is going to be internal topics. So most of them are like, most of us are like not aware, we'll not worry about that high watermark and low watermark. But when it really comes to the tuning internal parts, so definitely sometimes we need to increase that high watermark. And then when it comes to the transaction logs and row logs, that time this high watermark and all comes into picture. So definitely I'll take one session on that. Okay, table sync is recommended. Yes, table sync is recommended. So I also seen recently for one of the customers. So I did a lot of index rebuild, table move, and so many activities on few of the tables. But still, I have not seen any improvement in the performance. The moment I did this table sync, so I have seen a very drastic improvement in the queries. So definitely I will recommend table sync. Okay, so Ati is asking some of the basic questions on locking and this. Okay, locking, latching. When I cover this locking, latching, that is where it is this transaction lock and row lock and deadlocks and this high watermark and low watermark. So everything I'll, because these all are correlated topics. Once I take this topic, definitely I will cover these topics. I will plan it for upcoming days, but sorry for right now I don't have any sessions. Okay, so many questions. I think we are almost on the time. So please share the profiling related script. So definitely after the session, I hope you all are in our WhatsApp Telegram group. So definitely I'll share everything in our Telegram group. So any last question, last few minutes? How to start performance tuning like basics? Performance tuning like basics. Again, performance tuning is a ocean, because even you will get confused what is performance tuning at the end of the session, right? Because you you have to start at your, whether you have to think of whether I to start at performance tuning at my database side, or I have to start my performance tuning at OS side, or I have to start my performance tuning at SQL tuning, right? So again, it's a really like huge area. So definitely you have to start by area wise, right? You have to start with the database performance tuning. You start with like OS analysis, network analysis, and when it comes to the rack, how internal node communication works, you just start with that. And once you are familiar with all those areas like OS and network and those things, like gather stats, and these are basic groundwork, right? Whatever I explained. So once you are very much comfortable and you know in and out of that, you just jump into this, the SQL tunings and tuning advisor and profiling. And then once that is done, and then look into some kind of application side troubleshooting. And also like start with the database performance tunings, like gather stats, dictionary stats, fixed object stat, how it works. And then and then again you should ask, right, like when to stat, when how to gather stats on the table, when to when to start my gather stats on a table, when to start gather stats on a schema. Those are the basic questions you have to thorough understand, right? Like when there's a 20% change in your data, 20% DML operation on your table, then you have to start your gather stats. You have to do those kind of analysis, start with that area, and then jump into this SQL tuning and profiling and all. Some good research. So definitely I will check it out. I have some research. I will, after this session, I will share a lot of material related to performance tuning in our channel, in our Telegram group. You can refer it from there. SQL contains. Okay, last question. That is, what additional statistic does SQL profile contain? SQL profile. Okay, you do this one. Like I will share these two script and you try it for in your any of the development environment. you try to run this particular SQL and found out what are the execution plan for that particular query, and try to generate your SQL plan. Like by running this one, you try to generate your SQL profile. It will generate. See, this is SQL profile it generated, and then read this particular SQL profile, what all it contains, and then run that one. It will peg your SQL profile in your database. So you will read this one. You will get to know what and all it contains. One first thing is it will fix your plan hash value, and it will stick to your execution plan, and it will consider it will internally it will consider some of the current statistics of your particular table. So again, that is once you peg your SQL, that is fixed. Whatever change you do in your table, it will never ever that changes will get into your profile, right? So that's it for the today's session. So I can take last question from Ashwini: how to correlate wait events with the different sections in the AWR wait event? There are so many wait events, right? You can check what are the top wait events. Definitely, like when you are dealing with which kind of environment, right? Whether it's a rack database or whether it's a standalone database. Again, when in your rack database, whether it's a data warehouse database or there's a OLTP database, again your wait events will be it varies. And like again, wait event depends. There's so many wait events, right? You can one of the common interview question, please explain me what are the wait events, what are the top 5 wait events, right? Like, so if we can talk about, like, especially for rack, there's the GC buffer wait, and log buffer wait, and so many wait event I cannot recollect right now if you ask also. So you have to start with digging and first consider which particular area you want to look into, especially on the wait events, whether you are dealing with your data warehouse or whether you're dealing with OLTP, right? If you are dealing with the data warehouse, most of the time you will be data warehouse is meant for your select queries, and when you are selecting, one of the common issue is GC buffer weight, right? These are the common weight events you will see it. And when it comes to the OLTP, and if the name itself suggests, a lot of transactions you will be doing, and you can see a lot of weight event, especially for your DB buffer cache, and then log buffer cache, and sequential read, and scattered reads. There's so many the weight events you can see that those are, like, you start digging into that once you decide which environment you're working and which whether it's a rack or standalone. So you just start, like I already told you, like I covered basics of AWR report in my YouTube channel. You just go through that, that has so many topics which talks about the basics of AWR report, and then from there you can start digging into what exactly you need. Right, so that's about the today's session, I believe. So we are almost on the time. So any last questions? If no, then we can wind up. Okay, so fine then. So thank you everyone for joining this session. Definitely, this session will be available in my YouTube channel. You can refer it out. If anybody missed, you can take it from there. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.